it was one of those things where you get like so much adrenaline just goes like into.
Hi everyone, Andy here, and in today's episode I speak to Mirror US sport writer Andrew Gamble about his journalism journey so far, from writing articles in his room to interviewing Max Verstappen and the GOAT himself, Tom Brady. Find out how he got his job at the Mirror, making a move to New York, and there's also a very special announcement from me later on in the episode. Hope you all enjoy the episode. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast for another episode of off-season content. I am, as ever, your host, Andy Davis, and with me today, I've got a first-timer on the podcast. He is a writer for the Mirror, the US sport department. With me today is NFL writer all the way from New York. With me today is Andrew Gamble. Andrew, how are things?
Things are good, man. Things are good. Like I kind of said on the pre-show bit, things are hot here. Humid as ever as the NFL season will come, and I'm sure that will heat everything else up later in the year. But things are good, man. Things are good. Happy to be on the show. Thanks for having me on.
Well, always good to have new guests on, and I'm very jealous of you living in New York. It's my favourite city in the entire world, and that is the theme of today's episode. If you haven't guessed from the title, it is going to be basically all about Andrew's writing career so far, how he got into the NFL, how he got into writing about the NFL, and his experiences so far in New York, both living in the city in general, but also his time covering the teams such as the Jets and going to their practice sessions. That is all to come, and also an interview he had with the GOAT many years ago. So first of all, Andrew, like we ask all of our new guests, first of all, how did you get into the NFL?
It's a funny story because basically I had a nice quite a nice little intro into the NFL or into American sports. A pathway, I guess, kind of opened up. Basically, when I was very young, some of my cousins moved from the UK to America, to Boston. So I mean, obviously that then opened the door for me to support all the Boston teams and experience some pretty nice highs. But but basically at the start of it, you know, they moved out there. So obviously I was probably about 5-6 years old. So I was kind of had my interest peaked, I guess, just in American life, American sports and stuff like that. Because I grew up big fan of football, soccer, as they're trying to get me to say over here. So I grew up a big Arsenal fan, big football fan in general, big football nerd growing up. So I just loved sports, all kinds of sports kind of growing up. So basically what happened was I think I then ended up going to see some other family out in Australia, and my dad had just got us a Nintendo GameCube, so a bit of a throwback. So I think we were shopping in a mall in Sydney, and I went down, you know, because obviously I'm a child, don't want to be walking around the shops all day. So I went down to the one of the secondhand game shops. I can't remember what it was, like GameStop or one of those ones. And yeah, it was my first ever sight of American football, or at least that I can recall off the top of my head. But I saw Madden 2003 with Marshall Faulk on the cover. And yeah, I think I picked the game up because I was like, this is interesting. Obviously, it had EA Sports on, and I think I only played FIFA at the time. So I knew it was some kind of sports game, but the players obviously looked like gladiators. You know, the guy had his big Rams throwback kind of jerseys on, the helmet, the colors. And so I was like, I don't know, this looked cool. And that was kind of it from there. I came back, started playing Madden, kind of learned about the sport through that. I'm a big proponent of, you know, if you don't learn or you don't know a sport, I think playing a video game, playing Madden or anything like that, I think helps you understand the rules almost more than watching it. So yeah, I that's kind of how I grew up on it. Obviously a Patriots fan because of the Boston connection, but I think I'll always have a soft spot for the I said the St. Louis Rams, but the Rams in general because of that game, and because I didn't really know anything at the time, so I played a lot with them. You know, Marshall Faulk and Kurt Warner and that, you know, the greatest shot on turf. So that was kind of my big intro into it, and then from there, yeah, I guess I just got more involved, watched more highlights, watched more live games. Funny enough, the first game I actually stayed up to watch was the 2007 Super Bowl, or not 2007, but from that season where the undefeated Patriots were defeated by the New York Giants. So that was my first live game kind of viewing experience. but yeah, I mean, from there, it's just been an upward trajectory, I guess, of just having more and more NFL inserted into my life.
I've said this for years. I would love to have been not so much old enough because I was 11 at that point, but I'd love to have been into the NFL at that point when the Giants did beat the Patriots, because it just obviously from everything I've watched since on America's Game and everything I've watched about that Super Bowl win for the Giants has always been something I'd love to have seen live. It basically, for me, feels like what it would be when I watched Wigan against Man City in the FA Cup, or a real underdog story, team about to go the whole season and beat. And of course, a Dolphins fan, it would really ramped up my nerves about that. Sort of, the one thing we have of other teams is that 1972 team, and it would have been an awful shame if our biggest rivals, probably our biggest rivals, them or the Bills, would have won to end that and to equal it. So a bit like what Man U fans are going through right now with City winning the treble. So it was just us, but yeah, thankfully that didn't happen. And it's amazing how Madden, so many guests I had in the podcast, myself included, actually got into sport through Madden. I mean, you mentioned players having little things. Do you remember the first Madden I bought was a 9, but my favourite Madden is Madden 11, which had Drew Brees in the front. And the first game I watched, the one that got me into the NFL properly, was the Saints Chargers London game. So I feel like for the same reason you have Marshall Faulk and the Rams, I have that little bit of a, not so much Saints, but certainly Drew Brees. I view him as the reason why I'm doing this podcast today. I view him as watching him against for the Rivers in that game. I always view it as a game that got me at least being a casual fan, and then fast forward years gone by where I just watched the highlights. Games like Patriots Falcons and Patriots Eagles turned me from a casual fan to like a die-hard fan. I've not really missed any NFL since, but yeah. So you could have easily been a Rams fan if maybe you didn't have that Boston connection. Maybe you could have gone down the Rams route.
No, for sure. I mean, to be honest, it's kind of a funny one because like I don't want to sound too like fair weather, I guess, when it comes to it. Because I mean, obviously, I'll always rock with the Pats, but it's like I find that ever since I've kind of gotten more and more into the journalism and into just covering the league, I almost just I'm just an NFL fan. Part of that was also Tom Brady leaving and retiring. He was obviously kind of the heart and soul of the team for so long. But now it feels like almost I should just get a cap with the NFL logo on and just sit there in the stands, just like I'm the NFL's number one fan. But like, I kind of just support storylines and narratives these days, really as much as anything. It also doesn't help that the Patriots are pretty tough to watch. But yeah, it's funny. I mean, it's different. I think it shows as well, like how you can almost appreciate different teams and players in this league more than like the Premier League. Like in football, it's like, you might like a particular player on maybe a rival team, but like you're never gonna, I don't know, you'd never consider outwardly supporting them or maybe getting a jersey or something. But like that kind of thing is way, I don't know, certainly different from our perspective, because obviously we're not from a particular town or particular region where maybe the hatred is a bit more built in. But I just think the beauty of American sports is kind of like, I mean, obviously the NFL is a bit different maybe to the NBA or something, but it's more of a team sport, but you can almost rep any player that you like just because you like the way they play the game. I think that's the beauty of the NFL, is how so many different positions, so many different skill sets required, and so many different skill sets can excel in the same position. So, yeah, I mean, I kind of just gone off on a rogue tangent there, but it kind of shows that you could, yeah, I mean, look, I think anyone can support any team. I'm not one of those people that thinks you have to have like a particular reason to have it. But yeah, for my sins, I very much have enjoyed supporting the Patriots. But it's yeah, I'd say I mean the Boston connection was obviously my way in, I guess, from that perspective. But we like the Rams as well. One of my best friends supports the Rams. I can't remember why. It was because we were at university and he watched the Chiefs Rams game, the regular season game.
Oh wow, that one, the
yeah,
one,
yeah, the one. That was kind of his first year. I think he had the Rams in a sweepstake. Because we did a sweepstake that year, just a random draw, and he got the Rams, and so he watched all the games. And I think from there, yeah, watched the game. One of the best regular season games of all time. And then yeah, from there he's been hooked on the Rams. So I'm about getting as many people into it as possible. So we've created a few fandoms for sure along the way.
Yeah, and what I love is that everyone's got different reasons. I mean, there's whether it's like myself, family holiday, or whether it's you've got family there, or whether you watch a game on TV, the first team, or whether you randomly draw them out of a hat. And I think, yeah, like I certainly couldn't. I mean, I've got Bayern Munich tops, I've got a Valencia top, but I couldn't sit there and wear a Man U top. I couldn't wear a
Never.
Aston Villa top. I couldn't wear any of the British team. I couldn't even wear, really. I don't think Celtic or Rangers, to be honest. Maybe Celtic, because you never walk alone. But in the NFL, I mean, I don't tend to rock other teams' jerseys, but I'm not against people doing that. And other sports, NBA, I have no team, so I pretty much wear, as you say, players' jerseys. I've got Steph Curry, James Harden, other players. I think there's definitely that thing. Maybe from what you're saying, because people say it's not a country you're from, and unless you've got some real deep family roots in this place, and I think then it's different. But I think for most people like myself, I've got no family roots at all to America, absolutely none. And I think certainly, it can, allow you to just almost, pick whoever you want. And that's why I love asking people when they come on this podcast for the first time, why? Because there's so many different reasons. And I love hearing reasons why, because in the UK, if you're a Villa fan, 9 times out of 10, they're going to go, "Oh, I'm from Birmingham." Or if you're a Wigan fan, you're going to say, "I'm from Wigan." And I think, obviously, teams like Man U, Liverpool, Arsenal, different story. They're from all over the country, but with UK fans, someone goes, "You're a Lions fan, or Panthers fan, or Buccaneers fan." It could be for literally any reason. So, I love all of that, and as you say, I love bringing new people in, and I love the fact that I'm still trying to get my friends to all get into it. I mean, I got friends from home that they all hate the sport, so trying to get them into the sport would be a real challenge. I got one friend to come down to London for Super Bowl purely because it was a halftime show of Dr. Dre and Eminem. That got him in, but he still finds it hard to watch the sport. Plays Madden now and again, but he's certainly not going to be wearing a jersey anytime soon. Now you mentioned it, then Andrew. Of course, there's two Andrews in this podcast, which I haven't really noticed till now. I didn't even think in my mind. Of course, like myself, you are a writer. Of course, you are a lot more advanced in your journalism stage than I am. But you've written for the Mirror for many years now. So how did you get into that in terms of just writing for the Mirror based in the UK?
Yeah, so it's a funny one, because I think I always wanted to do writing. I always wanted to do sports writing. But I think for a long time when I was at school, I didn't don't know what the word is, but I guess I didn't quite understand the path to get there, because I think, when I reflect on kind of growing up and, stressing out over GCSEs and A levels and all that kind of stuff, I look back and I think it's like school's actually a really funny place, because it kind of sets you up for I don't know what, I'm obviously over exaggerating here, but 6 careers. It doesn't actually do justice to how many different paths and how many different careers and how many different jobs there are out in the actual world. You grow up and there are I don't know, school just kind of tries to push you down one road or another. So I did a lot of creative writing and sports reporting at school, but didn't actually do anything practical with it. So yeah, I mean, I at one point I was kind of lined up to, while I was at university, I was meant to just go into an accountancy job. Would have been fine. Would have been I mean, it would have been nicely paid, but it wouldn't have. I mean, it wasn't for me, right? So I kind of noped out of that and ended up actually moving to Spain for a year just to do teaching, just to, do something different. I didn't know what I was doing with my life, quite frankly. So that was when when I moved I lived in Malaga for a year, doing teaching, and while I was there, that was when I set up the British Playbook, which was my old blog, which is how I kind of got into all of this. So I set that up, and I basically just used it as an outlet, right? Just used it just to get build a portfolio of some sort. Because it's not like I had any contacts, not like I had anything like that. So steadily built that up, and then when my COVID actually hit that year, so my time in Spain was somewhat cut short, unfortunately. But from there, that was when I obviously then looked for the next step, because the blog was doing fairly well, but I needed to do something that obviously made some level of money, or make some actual inroads, I guess, into the professional aspect of the career. So from there, that was when I applied to join news associates, do NCTJ qualification in London, Twickenham. Shout out to them. It was a fun year. That I was on that course for a year. I had some amazing experiences. You know, I had to go get an internship for 1 week, for 1 day a week there, which I got at the Independent. Again, very blessed to work under some people there. You know, Jack Rathbone and Ben Burrows and these guys who all kind of helped me early days, because again, I had no experience of working in a professional environment, and you know, I think I was very passionate. I showed my passion for the NFL and American sports just very early. Blessed to obviously the COVID. That was the COVID NFL season. Super Bowl 55, Bucks against Chiefs. Super Bowl Media Week was virtual for the first time ever, which is obviously a shame for people living in the States, but for people like myself was like, I mean, really an incredible silver lining, I guess, of all of what happened over the previous year, because I mean, it was virtual, right? Like we could interview the players from, or I could interview players from, you know, sat in my room back home, compared to not being able to, you know, on a normal basis. So again, just an insane opportunity that kind of came about, I guess, through freak nature, freak pandemic. And then after that, I finished an Independent, finished my course. That was about May 2021. I worked freelance for a couple of months, got some cool interviews with some, you know, various sports people. Managed to get Max Verstappen, which was pretty amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. That was insane. That was the year he obviously went on and won the title. I actually interviewed him. Well, where was it? He was in Azerbaijan. So it was the year. It was the one where his tire blew out when he was winning by an absolute mile, and I was like, damn, I've jinxed the hell out of him just then. But that was incredible. Got a couple of other people, and then ended up saw the Mirror opportunity when it came up. And actually, I've been at the Mirror now, be 3 years in August. So yeah, I mean, it's gone. The first year we were on we were covering kind of all sports, just doing kind of quick fire news, whatever kind of came up. But when I first joined, I think in my interview, I basically said, like, I'm going to do American sports. Like, I don't think you guys are covering it that much. So like, I'm going to take some time every day to do that. And they obviously welcomed that, because obviously, I mean, I think if you show enthusiasm in any aspect in that regard, like, people will always welcome it. So yeah, I basically just did that, and then kicked on from there, kept pushing for American sports coverage. And eventually, I think August 22, something like that, we launched our like dedicated US sports project. Me, Joe McBride, Charlie Wilson, and Dan Blackham, shout out them. We were the original kind of 4 people on this project, and now that's steadily grown. Now we have an office in New York with dedicated US sports people. We have an office back in the UK, obviously, with dedicated US sports people. So, and it's a team of over 20 now, I think. So it's pretty amazing kind of how that it's all panned out. Obviously got to go to was it Super Bowl 57 as well, which took some convincing, I think, from the powers that be. But I mean, it was incredible. Yeah, incredible thing that obviously I was insanely grateful for at the time. And I had no idea what I was doing. You know, well, I didn't know what I was doing, but you know, like, going to those kind of events is very different to doing it in the UK. You know, like doing it at the London Series games and then going to the Super Bowl is like, it's insane. You know, American journalists, they do not wait for your turn to speak in a press conference. It is very much every man for himself. So I kind of got adjusted to that pretty early. Bit of a rude awakening, but it was amazing. Chiefs Eagles, it was a great Super Bowl. Rihanna halftime show. Wow, what more can you ask for? But that's kind of my I guess I've just vomited out my kind of career so far, but that's pretty much how it's gone so far.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from purely the London experience alone in a press box, that feels a bit like you're in an auction house sometimes trying to get your question in, and when I've done things like I've done games at the Amex stage, Brighton games when I was at uni there, doing my journalism degree. I remember trying to get your question in. Where again, it's a bit like an auction house. You put your hand up and you wait for your turn, and sometimes you have to, especially when you did the huddles at the London stuff, especially the training sessions and all that kind of stuff. It does feel like an auction. You're trying to get your question in. If you don't ask your question now, you'll never get a chance. So I can imagine at a Super Bowl that must have been tenfold. Must have been 10 times that sort of intensity. Now, from watching media, Radio Row and all the media stuff that goes on just on the first day of the week, that alone just looks absolutely nuts. And I'm sure, fans of show George and Dre, when they've done it, I've seen them speaking on the podcast since about how knackered they are after. It just sounds like it takes it all out of you. But of course, you mentioned then your first Super Bowl experience. I mean, from a kid, playing Madden to watching the Patriots lose and then win Super Bowls. I imagine, like myself, many NFL fans dreaming of one day going to Super Bowl. How cool is that, not only to go to it for the first time, but also to actually work at it as well? So almost like, I'm guessing it was free tickets as well. That must have been just a fantastic experience.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think it's one of those things where I didn't take a second for granted. It was probably one of the, if not the hardest I've ever worked in a single week. But it's weird because it's like, you're churning out transcripts and you're churning out articles to get out and features and whatnot from speaking to all these players and different personalities dotted around. Because that's the other thing, right? Like, obviously it's Super Bowl media weeks. There were just so many people there, like so many, whether it's personalities or other players or legends or whatever. Like, there are so many different opportunities. You can kind of get so caught up in it. It's exhausting. But it's one of those things, like, this is why you do it, right? Like, you work in the office or at home, grinding out articles and whatnot the whole time for those types of experiences. I think, yeah, it was incredible. I think, I had one moment where I asked Patrick Mahomes a question in the press conference, and you have to obviously, like, you're shouting out their names, like, get their attention. And I'd done it a couple of times, and he, like, someone else had got in with their question, and then I just said it, and you just feel like the whole room just like stops and just stares at you, and then you realize that he's looking at you, and you're just like, oh damn, this is my time. This is my time to shine. Like, I've actually burst through. It was funny. I think I asked him about how, the lessons he's learned from the Super Bowl loss to the Bucks, and how he's put that into practice, and then what he hopes his legacy will be. I think it was my question, and it was funny. I actually went back to the media center afterwards, and I had my headphones in and was writing stuff up. And then they have, like, well, in Arizona they had like screens dotted around the media center, and like playing NFL Network stuff. And while I had my headphones in, I could like hear Patrick Mahomes like replying to my question, but like not on my headphones. So I was like, I like took it out and I was like, what is going on? I turned around and looked at the screen, and it was him giving his answer to my question, but on NFL Network. And I was like, okay, this is weird. But yeah, in the best way. Like, this is the stuff that I've always wanted to do. I had a lovely chat with people like Ian Rappaport, guys who are obviously the guys when it comes to kind of NFL reporting and insider reporting. And it's just crazy. We were chatting about his love for Borussia Dortmund, because obviously he heard my accent. He immediately goes, soccer. So so that was good. I think just circling back to what your question was. I think really when it set in, of like, obviously I was grateful for the entire experience and in awe of the entire experience. I think for me, really, the moment where it was like, damn, this is a moment, was kind of at the end of the game. The Super Bowl ended, the interviews were all done. I went back to the press box, which was like overlooking the press seats, which were like overlooking the pitch, or the field, I should say. And I remember I was sitting there, writing my stuff up in my seat. And I remember just looking up, and, the roof's closed, the confetti's all on the pitch. There's like no one there anymore. It's like it's so empty. All the fans have left, apart from the journalists and stuff who are writing. And I remember just sitting there just being like, this is actually just crazy. Like I'm just inside where, the Super Bowl 57 just got played and I'm still here, still working. And it's just like, I don't know, this like serene moment of just kind of peace after the storm, just filing the last report. I think that was when I was kind of like, damn, this has been insane. So yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens in the future, but hopefully get to experience it more often. And I'm sure you'll work your way there as well. I have no doubt about it.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. That is, I've got, a World Cup final, Super Bowl, Champions League final, and Masters. It's sort of 4 sporting bucket list items that I'd love to do. And for me, yeah, that is a dream. Going to Super Bowl. I'm hoping. I got a friend of mine who wants to go for his 40th. Shout out Lee if he's listening. Wants to go for the week, and I'm tempted to do that and just see whether I can get a ticket or hopefully media creds through NFL communications. And yeah, that is what I'm obviously striving for eventually, is to get a Super Bowl, because that would just be, I think from what you're saying, it'd be the culmination of all the work you've done over the years. I mean, from all these podcast episodes I do, to articles, to YouTube, everything else I do, TikTok, it would just be almost like it would feel worth doing, because doing all this stuff, it is all for free. But obviously I've always got my head that, one day, it'd be worth paying that £60 to get trained to Loughborough, or be worth, paying that, £200 for a week to stay in London, all that kind of stuff. And I think, that would be my dream realised. But I'm sure, like many people do, once you get that dream, I'm sure there's something else you strive for afterwards.
Always. Did you say you want to cover the Masters? Are you a golf guy?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the knowledge, but I love to just go as a fan. I think I'd love to cover, like as a journalist, I'd love to cover, the World Cup final, Super Bowl, Champions League, and Masters. I've got a basic knowledge, and I do watch the majors, but I don't think I could sit there and write an article. But at the same time, if I got given a job there to do Masters, I would do all the research and all that. So I'm sure,
for sure,
if anyone listens to this podcast and wants any golf written for them, then yeah, maybe even a mirror.
I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's always worth trying your luck.
Yeah.
I swear we always have. I mean, we're changing all the time, a lot of turnover. But yeah, man. I mean, I covered my first golf event a couple of weeks ago. I went to the US Open out in North Carolina, and yeah, man. I don't know how much I don't know if my editor's gonna let loose his grip on the Masters job, but if he's ever out of action, I think there's going to be a few of us in the office fighting each other for that one, because it's pretty weird. It's not weird, but it's pretty amazing to cover golf, because you just walking around in just like these beautiful settings, watching these guys who are just like watching it in person is insane how effortlessly good they are. When if I try and play golf, I make myself look like a fool. So it was a crazy experience. NFL still number one, but golf has definitely climbed up since that experience a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, you mentioned then, I mean, like yourself, whenever I play golf, I make probably even more of a fool of myself than you do. And I remember when I went to the Ryder Cup one year, because it was literally on my doorstep, but a half an hour drive. Went to one of the best days through my golf club I used to go to as a junior. And I remember, again, what do you think? Seeing the shots in person. My favourite golfer is Lee Westwood. I'm fully aware that he is not the same level as like, a Tiger Woods. And when seeing Tiger Woods in the flesh, and then seeing, Phil Mickelson and Ian Poulter, who turns into Tiger Woods on Ryder Cup Day, and seeing his golf and seeing, I was so used to that point. I'd never seen a golf event before. I had just, been used to seeing people at my junior club, like the good ones and the bad ones, and then you go and you see all these golf that you watch on TV, and seeing how they do it. Oh, it was just, I think you realise then. I think for many sports, when you see the athletes performing in real life, you just see how high the level is. I mean, I remember seeing at Brighton, Liverpool, Thiago just passing the ball around and seeing how fast these balls are being sprayed to these guys in when they were training before the game, and in their little rondo or circle, and just you realise then that is the bar, and then you realise that in real life you just get the full picture. Now, from technically real life to virtual life, now I want to talk about something with you, because you mentioned Max Verstappen and get interview him. Now, you mentioned the virtual interviews with players. You got to interview Tom Brady, which, of course, as a Patriots fan, that must have been just an incredible experience. Probably, I'm guessing your favorite ever Patriots player, getting to interview him in the flesh must have been just, again, a real 180 moment for you.
Yeah, I mean that one. So that was actually during the which one was it? That was the virtual one. That was the virtual what's it called? The Super Bowl 55 when everything went online. I mean, man, that was kind of surreal. I mean, the inside story of that is actually it's pretty funny, to be fair. But the so basically what happened was, we got given our Super Bowl Media Week passes, virtual ones. So you basically like sign on to this, I don't know, big server which has 12 different interviews, 12 different players going, and they're constantly like cycling through just to get through everyone. And my boss at the time, he at the Independent, Jack, he sat through the Brady one on the first day. And how it works is you go on to this. It's kind of similar to like the ones we do for NFL UK, right? Where you go on, you put your hand up on the Zoom call, and then the moderator kind of just goes through the list. I think in the Super Bowl they kind of pick out the people who are like big name journalists and reporters first or whatever. But that was the first time they were like trialing this format, right? So Jack went on the Tom Brady one. I think I went to like Gronkowski and Shady McCoy and stuff like that. And got to ask them some questions. That was pretty cool. But then afterwards, obviously, I'm messaging Jack. I'm like, oh, how was the Tom Brady one? And he was like, oh, it was cool. I put my hand up like straight away, but didn't get selected for the whole 45 minutes or whatever it was. So it was cool, but didn't get to ask a question or anything. And I was like, oh, what, that's a shame. Whatever. Next day came along. Obviously, Brady had his next media duty, and so I said to Jack, I was like, "Would you mind if I jump on the Brady one, and see what happens?" And he was like, "Yeah, I mean, you're probably not going to get picked. Just a heads up, but go for it." And it was funny, so because I went on it, and we had there was like a technical difficulty on Brady's side, so some random person then just came on screen and was like, we're having some technical difficulties over here. We're going to be about 10 or 15 minutes late. I think at that point, because obviously when we jump on the call, I click my, raise my hand. I think at that point, a lot of people who were in front dipped and like went to other interviews, whereas I kind of just stayed on because I was like committed to seeing Tom on a screen, basically having a call with him. So I was kind of committed to that. Sat back. It was so funny. So my girlfriend was sat on my bed, kind of doing her, work or whatever, watching something on Netflix or something with her headphones in. And I was sitting there and I'd like written a question down or a couple of questions down. And I was just sitting there kind of, I was planning for what to ask other Bucks players, once Brady's thing ended. Anyway, the first question gets asked, the moderator goes, okay, we're ready to start now. Can we go to this person? So this, this woman gives her question, and then I'm literally sitting there, and she just goes, the moderator just goes, okay, yeah, so we're gonna go now to Andrew Gamble at the Independent, and all of a sudden this thing comes up on my screen, just goes unmute, and I was literally like, it was one of those things where you get like so much adrenaline just goes like into it sounds lame as hell to say out loud, but like I was so in shock that it was actually happening that I obviously unmuted it. I somehow coherently got the question out. But then, I mean, as soon as it went mute again, I was listening to what he was saying, but I was like, because I went back on mute and I just remember my girlfriend just sat on the thing, just like, did you just do that? Like she ripped.
Oh, no way. That's so nice.
She rips her headphones out and she just goes, did that just happen? And I was like, yeah, and we kind of both lost our minds a little bit. I listened to his question, and then once we moved on, or once he moved on to the next question, I kind of was just like, I need to go for a walk. Just like I don't know. I mean, that's this kind of stuff that I love, man. In this industry is talking to these kind of guys. I definitely, as I've gotten more experience with it, obviously I always keep my cool, but it's like, there are some players where you're still a little bit starstruck. Like Brady, Mahomes was one of them. it just happens, you know. Like these guys are legends, you know. They're living legends, and I think having the opportunity to speak to them will never get lost on me. So that was an unbelievable experience. Especially so early in my career. Like I wasn't qualified yet. Yeah, just insane. Yeah, incredibly blessed.
That is incredible. I mean, it's I've been around people like Jurgen Klopp and Ronaldo, but to actually ask them a question is a different thing altogether. And it's just one of those things where, again, like yourself, to have it that early on in your career is just an incredible, kind of bit of fortune in your favour. Really, that's an incredible moment for you. And I would to this day love to meet Steven Gerrard, or and then I would love that. And that's something that would be the peak for me. And I feel like I'd be the same as you. I'd be inside. I'd be all cool on the outside, but inside I know full well by heart will be beating at 2,000 beats per minute. It's and I even when I got to ask Dan Marino a question on a Zoom call, and the guy who retired when I was 5 years old, even I got a little bit, starstruck around him, just even though it was virtually, because he is, the face of the franchise pretty much. And yeah, like even though he was 5 when I was 5 and he retired, it still, that's still, I can imagine for you, Tom Brady and Max Verstappen and Patrick Mahomes. It's just these are the guys you watch on TV, and these are the guys that you watch excel in their sport, and then to go and actually ask them questions is an incredible achievement. Before we go on to your time in New York so far, you've written a book. We get the script up now on Amazon. So the book is called "The Special Relationship: A History of American Football in the United Kingdom." I will put the link to this on the podcast episode information. To a quick, short summary of the description, it says. It charts the arrival and development of gridiron football on this side of the Atlantic. This comprehensive account presents story across 3 key sections, outlining how and why the sport became so popular in Britain, from the first match at Crystal Palace back in 1910 to the incredibly popular international series, which has become a permanent fixture in the NFL regular season. And it goes on further and talks about, obviously, the whole London series. The Special Relationship is a captivating story of how the sport arrived on the doorstep of America's great allies and survived to become the ever-growing presence as it is today. I mean, what was that experience like? Because a childhood dream of mine was to write a book, and there may be one coming. I just need to find the time. But to actually get one written and then published, that must have been a real great moment when that first book was published.
Yeah, I mean, when the first copy gets sent to you, to be honest, I think I got really excited when they sent the PDF version before it even got printed. Just seeing it all like laid out and like formatted, it took up, I think, just over a year of my life. On top of kind of my day job and actually studying for the NCTJ at the time as well. So it was a lot of writing, it was a lot of work, but it was like you say, it was just something I wanted to do. I think just to kind of put my name out there as an author, as well as a writer and reporter, and like you say, I think it's just a dream. I don't want to go like too cliche, but life's pretty short. So it's there are things that you kind of want to do, and that kind of the whole idea for that book came about because of me and my dad were drinking at Christmas, and he was just like, "You should write a book." When we were talking about the NFL, and I was like, I should write a book. And it kind of just spiraled. I mean, the hardest part of writing a book, or just any kind of large project, or getting underway on anything like that, the start is always the hardest, because I think turning that from like an idea into like a physical thing that you're going to commit to, I think it takes a lot of energy. But I think once the ball gets rolling, it kind of all snowballs, right? So it was amazing. I had some great people help me out, getting the interviews and whatnot for that. Spoke to a load of British players who've obviously served in history. But it's funny because it's like, I love like my book. My book is fantastic. I personally, I think, but the first section is like awesome. But then the second and third sections are also great, but they were written at the time, so it's like they like chronicling the international series and chronicling the British players, and like we're living in a time now where obviously we're getting international games every year, but there are more and more players coming into the NFL now. So I mean, I'm probably just gonna have to write a follow up in 10 years, continuing to chart the rest of the players who've come in and their stories. So no, it was amazing, and I'm very grateful that I wrote the book. It was, the support of British fans was amazing when it came out. It became a got added to the Amazon bestsellers list basically entirely because of the British people buying it for Christmas that year. So yeah, just crazy. Again, yeah, another kind of crazy experience. I don't want to say I don't say it's like luck, but definitely like, the door opened at the right time. I think I just positioned myself quite nicely in front of the door. So it was good. It was a good time.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly an achievement to get not only a book published, but then to get it in the bestsellers. It just goes to show the love of the UK,
For
love that
sure.
the UK have for NFL, because it could have easily been a book where maybe a handful of people bought it, because it is, there's not sugarcoat it. It is still a niche sport in the UK. It's not football.
Insanely niche. Yeah.
It's not cricket, it's not rugby, and I think it's still very much fighting to break into that mainstream media, but a mainstream market, I should say. But to get it at better sellers, it shows how many were interested in getting it. So kudos to you, and yeah, I've certainly been intrigued to read a follow up on that.
For sure.
Now, fast forward to the move to New York. Now, I met you in the London game for the first time in person, and I met you again. Was it March at Wimbledon?
Yes. Yeah.
And it couldn't
At the
be long
flag thing.
after that. Yeah, at the flag with Tremaine Edmonds and Quincy Williams. And if you haven't checked out, actually, it is on my TikTok, Andy Talks NFL, my interviews with those two players. But of course, it couldn't have been long after that where you got the move to New York. So how did that happen, going from just writing in the UK for the Mirror to then being offered the chance to join the new office in New York for the US sports?
Yeah, I mean, we started the so the company basically launched Reach, the overarching kind of company of all these newspapers. They launched themirror.com rather than .co.uk, and theexpress.com. But I want to say it was last summer. So they had people in place that they sent over. Basically, it was probably at the turn of the year, kind of going into 2023. They kind of put feelers out just to see who would be interested in a secondment or moving permanently, or whatever you might want to do. Obviously, I put my name forward for that. I didn't quite have enough editing experience at the time, and because the team would be so small, they needed someone with editing experience just to like help the team, run at fire on all cylinders. So I wasn't part of the initial wave of people that went out there in for the June July launch. But the Mirror and the Express, they're Reach committed to growing these these companies, growing our presence out here in the States in terms of what is obviously a crowded sporting and media landscape, but a very large market. So we're just carving a foothold there. So how did it come around? I think my editor, Tom Bristow, he just came forward with the opportunity. I can't remember exactly when it was, but I think late last year. He said, are you still interested in potentially moving out to the States? Is that something that's still on your radar? Obviously I said yes. And yeah, it went a bit quiet from there, just sorting out a visa and stuff, because that's all kind of, they take out your hands a little bit. The people who know how to do that, the streamlined process, etc. So that all happened. And then yeah, just one day, I think it might have been just after that flag thing, I kind of just got an email basically being like, yeah, your visa's pretty much ready. You just need to go to the US embassy, kind of formally apply for it, and then yeah, you'll be ready to go in a week, pretty much, or whenever you get it back. So I did that, and then a week was too soon to completely switch my life. So I ended up moving May 1st. So I've been here now just over 2 months. And yeah, yeah, that was kind of how that all happened. It's pretty cool. I mean, we're obviously trying to grow our presence over here. And yeah, so attending as many events as possible. Obviously, New York is similar to London, but obviously with the American sport fix here, it's crazy. There are so many different opportunities that come about. American sports is very much ingrained into the culture here as well, so it's much more in your face, which is quite surreal after being an American sports fanatic for years in the UK and it being a niche thing, and then you move here and it's just like bam, you go to Times Square and there's like, I don't know, NFL guys plastered on adverts and NBA guys plastered on adverts. So it's I mean, it's great. It's again, it's a blessing to be here, and yeah, continuing to work hard. But it's definitely cool to be doing it. It's definitely cool to not be waking up or staying up till 4 a.m. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it'll be a bit of a nice surprise for you come September time when the season starts, where hopefully you'll be able to go to a few games, but also just being able to not stay up till 4 p.m. I remember when I did my travels in America. I remember first up was Seattle, and they're of course 8 hours behind. So I was watching Sunday Night Football at 5:20 p.m. I'm like, this is amazing. This is normally I record games watching the next morning. It's that was incredible. That I found that incredible and an amazing experience. And then even going to games at like 1 p.m. and all that, and watching games at 10 a.m. When I was in the West Coast, it's just that'll be for you. I imagine it gets to that time you'll be able to actually watch games and not be exhausted towards the end of like the second part of Red Zone, for example, or the prime time games.
It's funny as well because the flip side of that then is like that's all great and that's great and all, but like trying to keep up to date with Arsenal or whoever's playing in the Premier League is so funny because I think I had one game Arsenal were on I think the 12:30, the early kickoff on Saturday, and I was like, I'll wake up, I'll try and catch the second half or something because obviously that'll be like 7:30 in the morning, and just ended up I don't know what happened. Slept until 9 on the weekend and was just like, all right, well we won, but but I didn't watch any of it. So yeah, but I think that's the flip side. But like, I'm an American sports man at heart, so I'm very excited for the NFL to get going. Watching the NBA playoffs, constantly at a normal time was pretty awesome. So I'm very excited for the NFL.
And of course, Knicks had a very good season. They got to the playoffs and they almost had a Cinderella sort of story. Now, part of your time in the US doing the work for the Mirror has involved going to New York Jets training sessions, amongst many of the things you've done out here so far. What's that been like? And of course, I don't know whether you were there when Rodgers got himself injured, but what's that been like? And is it any different to what I would experience, for example, in the London games? Because those are great, but they always feel very short. I don't know whether it's the same kind of time length you get to watch them in America, or is it the same process as you would experience in the UK training sessions?
I think to be fair, they do a pretty good job, I guess, replicating it. I think it's about the same. You go out, you watch them. I think we watched them for about. I mean, I'm probably wrong. I don't want to get it messed up. It feels like it's about 90 minutes. You're probably watching them. Might be just less than that, but there are obviously bits of the practice, like in the UK, that you can film. Other bits you obviously can't because obviously they're running their plays and whatnot. I was there for the Aaron Rodgers one where he began limping, or like had his kind of heel attended to, and claim it was a blister thing. Obviously that had some people's hearts in mouths a little bit, given what happened last season. I mean, it's going to be interesting, I think, just to watch the Jets this year because obviously it's such a stark parallel to what they were last season. Obviously last year it was so much, it was like a tsunami of optimism, right? Like everyone was so excited. I'm not a massive, I mean, I guess I kind of have to like the Jets a little bit now because I live here, but like,
so not Giants, Jets, so Jets over Giants.
I think the Jets are being nice to me with media requests, so we're liking the Jets more than the Giants at the moment. But I think I'm not the biggest. Obviously I support the Patriots, right? So last year I wasn't the biggest Jets fan, and obviously I'm a Tom Brady guy, so I wasn't the biggest Aaron Rodgers fan. But even Even my heart sunk, man, when his Achilles tore on that fourth play when he went off. That was just gut wrenching, because I think it's just, again, like, part of the beauty of American sports and stuff. There are so many storylines and so many narratives that you can buy into and believe in, and that one just hurt, man. I felt for the entire fan base. I felt for just everyone following the NFL, because it just would have been a great story just to see what Rodgers is like. Now, obviously, that's prolonged into this year, and it's obviously so different because it's very not underwhelming, but like, it's quieter. Like, people aren't gassing the Jets up as much. I mean, the NFL are, because they're on as many primetime games as anyone else. But they're going to be interesting to watch. I mean, Garrett Wilson has looked awesome in practice, in OTAs. He's looked electric. Back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons already in his career. And that's with Zach Wilson throwing the ball. So if Rodgers is playing even at 70% of what we've seen Aaron Rodgers in the past, I think Wilson's going to put up numbers. I think Breece Hall is primed for another great season. It's going to be fun. And then the Jets defense. I mean, obviously they've stayed. They've been formidable the last couple of years anyway. So I think it's exciting. I think that obviously there are still some other things that will play out in this offseason. Rodgers going a bit AWOL. Missing mandatory minicamp is something to keep an eye on. As I say, something to keep an eye on, as if Fox and ESPN haven't been running that story relentlessly. But yeah, it's a cool time to be covering. It's a cool time covering the Jets. It's definitely an interesting time to be covering the Giants as well. I don't know what they're going to look like this season, but the Hard Knock stuff coming out over how some of the clips that have come out look pretty interesting about how they dealt with Saquon Barkley leaving and whatnot. So yeah, I think it's gonna be an interesting season for both New York teams. And the atmosphere in New York, I guess, I think realistically, I kind of see more kind of Jet stuff, because I think they're just a noisier franchise at the moment. Because obviously they traded for Rodgers and had that season and whatnot. So I think the atmosphere is quietly confident. I think they're looking good. Their skill players are looking good in OTAs. So we'll see. I'd say definitely, actually, real quickly as well, one of the things that was really interesting at the OTA, to see in person, was the Jets practicing kick returns, because obviously that's going to be such a different. Like, that's actually, I think when you think about it, like, it's such a. Obviously, we'll see how it actually pans out, but to me, it feels like that's going to be one of the biggest changes, really, in recent history for the NFL. Not necessarily how it will define the game or anything like that, but it could define the game. Like, we don't know how this is going to happen, because it is actually such a big difference to such a. I don't want to say it's not an important part necessarily of the game, but like, special teams, it's a big aspect, and it can be a big aspect if you deploy it right. So I think it's going to be interesting. No one really knows what to expect. So I think that's definitely one of the things that I think's almost snuck under the radar a little bit this offseason. I think that's going to be something that people are going to watch, because watching them line up and do it at practice was like, okay, this is going to look different. Like, it's going to be cool. It's going to be cool to see how it unfolds. It might not, defenses might know how to shut it down, but special team defense might know how to shut it down, but it's another layer of strategy kind of added to the game, compared to in the past, where you almost just want to kick it out the end zone anyway, and take the touchback. So now I think the touchback goes to 35 now. So teams don't want to do that. It's an extra 10 yards. You kind of want to pin them back. It's gonna be and you don't get a running start anymore. So it's gonna be. I think the first couple of weeks is gonna be pretty chaotic to watch, but it would be cool.
I agree. I think preseason especially might be one to actually really watch, because that's where you see the real craziness, because at least you've got, they'll have 3 or 4 weeks, albeit probably different players in the special teams to what, like, they wouldn't be, certainly the offense, defense wouldn't have to start it, but maybe special teams will have the guys they would play come week 1, week 2. And I think that's when you'll see the real craziness, because teams are going to have to get used to it. And it is a completely new concept. And it's one thing doing it in practice, then it's doing it, with players coming at you at X miles an hour. So I think the first 2 weeks are going to be teething problems, but I think for fans it's going to be great, and I think it's going to be, I personally I don't like it, but I can see why they made the move as well. I can see why they've made the change. So I think be really weird to get used to. For me, it'll be a bit like what we've seen with the COVID situation, where we thought no fans to stage that's seemed really weird, but then come week 4, week 5, or even week 2, you were like, it felt normal to you. So I think once we see it, like any new rule in any sport, once we see it in action for a few weeks, I think then we'll be, it'll almost become, by the time it comes this time next year, or it'll almost feel like it's been in the game for years. Before we do go, Andrew, now we mentioned NFL stuff you did in New York and NBA and golf. Have you had time to experience New York for the non-sporting, like the Empire State Building or the Statue of Liberty? Have you done any of the sort of the standard tourist stuff?
I have, yeah. I mean, I've been lucky enough to come to New York before, so I've done the Empire State Building and Rockefeller and stuff like that in the past. I need to go to the Edge, to be honest. That's this funky one with the platform. I don't know if you've seen it. It looks pretty. Yeah. One of my friends actually was over from Italy, and he went up there with his girlfriend. He didn't propose to her, which I think she was expecting. So you hate to see that. Yeah, I mean, man, I'm just enjoying it, to be honest. I think just honestly, just walking around the streets, as kind of lame as that might sound, just feels crazy, right? Because it just feels like you're in like a movie set or on a TV show or something. Because it's obviously something that we've always seen, in pop culture and whatnot. So yeah, right now I'm staying at my dad's girlfriend's place. It's quite nice, pretty close to Central Park. So I've been trying to enjoy that as much as I can before I end up moving into my own place. So just nice, kind of exploring the area, going around. Done Statue of Liberty again, because obviously that's quite a nice thing to do. And it's also just sunny here. It's the other thing actually that surprised me is, dude, there are so many thunderstorms.
Really?
I think it's just because it was obviously because of the humidity and stuff, but it's just something I totally did not expect. But they happen probably, I don't know if it's once a week, but it feels like once a week. There's like a big thunderstorm, lightning and stuff like that. So I kind of love that stuff anyway. So I'm okay with the humidity, even if I'm sweating constantly. But it's cool, man. I'm definitely enjoying New York life. It's a cool city. It's somewhere I've always wanted to live, I guess. But I think it's always been one of my favorite cities in the world. So to actually come here and do it, the subway is a different beast, but it's but it's great. I mean, it's all, it's a huge city. It has so much culture, so many different kind of ethnicities. I think that get kind of, might not know about really, or might not truly understand until you kind of become a bit more acquainted with the city. So it's beautiful. Love all the areas. Still exploring. I think I met someone, they said it takes you, it feels like an arbitrary number, but I think they said 12 years to become a local in New York. I'm gonna round it down to a decade. So I think you basically have to spend 10 years in New York to then consider yourself a local. So I've got a long time to go if I ever reach that point. But it's cool, man. Great city. And I mean, if you ever happen to be here, hit me up for sure.
Well, the plan is it's my 30th on January 7th next year. So what's that, 6-7 months time? And we're playing the Jets in the last game of the season at MetLife on January the 5th. And I kind of think I'll never be in New York on my 30th. And adding the fact that it could be a game where you win the division or make the playoffs, I feel like I kind of have to go there. I have to go there for that, even if on my own, even if I don't go with my girlfriend, even if I think she wants to come as well. I feel like I have to try that, because it depends how the season goes. If it gets to like November and we're like, I don't know, 4-6, I think, oh, maybe I won't be the one. But I think if it gets to December and we're 10-4, or we're in with a chance of winning the division, something we haven't done in my entire, what's that been, 14 years being a fan, I feel like I'd have to do it, because I love New York anyway. Spend my 30th there and see us win the AFC East would be amazing. So that's in the works. It's not booked yet or anything, but I think that's something I love to do. Yeah, it'll be cold, but I'm happy to sacrifice my warmth for So yeah, I will hit you up. Should I go? Should I get my things booked, and we'll have to meet for New York pizza or deli or something, or obviously, or even a game as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure, man. Always down. Always down. The food here is pretty unreal. So definitely enjoying that.
I bet. I mean, I remember when I went to New York, the pizzas were just something else, and it was just America in general. The pizzas are just different level to the UK, and the delis were amazing, and everywhere I went for food in those 4 days I was in New York were all just superb. Now, I did allude to it in the start of the episode, in the preview to this episode, but I had an announcement to make. I'll be heading to Dublin in August for the Aviva college football game. This is between the Florida State and the Georgia Tech teams in Dublin's Aviva Stadium on Saturday, August 24th. Got my accreditation earlier today. I've never been to that stadium before. I've been to Dublin once before, but I'm looking forward to experiencing college football for the first time. I've never been to a game. So I'm looking forward to experiencing that. You will be seeing content along the way on our TikTok or on my TikTok, Andy Talks NFL, on the podcast's Twitter and Instagram pages, and maybe even the YouTube channel we've got as well. Do subscribe if you haven't already to those channels. Andrew, it's been a pleasure having you on for your debut, and it's been a great time hearing about your story and your journalism career so far.
Appreciate it, man. No, thank you for having me on. And congratulations on going to the college game. That's gonna be unreal. I think I got some friends who are going, who have tickets as fans. So that's gonna be I think the atmosphere is gonna be crazy. I've heard the atmosphere is always really good in Dublin. So yeah, enjoy that. It'll be sweet. I can't wait to see your content.
Thank you, mate. And I am a Gators fan, so I feel like a bit under enemy territory, but I'll try to avoid wearing any sort of Gators gear. But if I'm honest, if I see really sick. If they have like sort of a stall of all different, like in NFL games, and if they have like a stall of like different college football teams gear, and I see a Gators jacket or I see a Gators cap or something, I feel like I might have to just get that because that would be just an opportunity I can't really turn down. Thank you for watching or listening to this episode today. Once again, huge thank you to Andrew for coming on. You can see on the visual, you can see his Twitter handle there, so do give him a follow if you haven't already. If you are listening rather than watching, it will be on our socials. When the podcast is released, you'll get his and obviously, and if you do see his socials and his handle, give him a follow as well. But in the meantime, this has been the Across the Pod NFL podcast. I've been, as ever, your host, Andy Davis. This has been Andrew Gamble, and we will see you guys for our next episode.